Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Geek Speak. I am Matthew Harris, and of course, with me, as always, is my co-host and partner in crime, Meredith Loughran. I always say her name wrong. And today,
I blame the beard.
Do what? You blame the beard?
I blame the beard.
Well, and today, folks, we got with us Eric Ryan Alexander. He is he wears many hats over at Soundscape VR. And we are going to have a little fun meeting Eric and learning all about this. So welcome to the show, Eric. Hey, Eric.
Hey, Matthew. Hey, Meredith. Thanks for having me on today.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks for joining us, man. I know.
My pleasure.
You guys, well, the first thing I got to say is you retired at the age of 29.
Yes, I did.
That is, you're my hero already. Just that first thing I read, he retired, and he was a scientist, everybody, and was able to retire at 29. And then you've pretty much put all of your time and your own funds into Soundscape since then, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was super lucky in that, I was able to step away and achieve financial freedom at that age. But then now, I basically immediately got sucked right back in, and now I'm working harder than I ever have been, and just going all in on Soundscape. But it's definitely a blessing to be able to take that burden of chasing the money initially with a new product launch and rather focus on just doing it right.
Well, you know what's funny? I just an observation, because a lot of people say, if you could do anything, if time and money wasn't an object, what would you be doing? And from the sounds of it, you're working harder than ever.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I would describe my work with Soundscape as an addiction of sorts. That to go into virtual reality and imagine a place in your mind and turn that imaginary place into reality. It is absolutely intoxicating, and I'm no stranger now to working until the sun comes up every day. Mm-hmm. So, yes, I was lucky to find that thing that I'm so passionate about and be able to go all in on it. And in some ways, it doesn't never feel like work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, man. I used to drive my dad crazy because if I woke up in the morning and said I hate my job, I'd quit. And that was his fault because I saw him come home miserable every single day of his life from his job. And I was bound and determined I wasn't going to do that. And I have found as a writer and as the managing editor for Geek Insider, I'm doing what I love. And the days, sure, they're busy, and there's times where I don't get to bed until midnight or later, but it doesn't feel like work. Now, for those in the audience that aren't familiar with Soundscape, tell everybody in your own words, because of course I've got the little blurb, that tells everybody what it is, but in your own words, what is Soundscape VR?
Soundscape VR is an escape from reality that's meant to connect people through the power of music. The intention is to be a lot of things at the same time. Soundscape VR is a hyper immersive music visualizer. It's a platform for artists to share music. It's a way to go into a world with your best friend and listen to a song face to face rather than just sending them that link on Spotify and hoping they listen to it. It's really kind of a new paradigm of music technology that was all invented pre-COVID or before any of that hassle came around of people thinking, oh, we might not be able to go to a concert in the real world. It was born out of the idea of live music is one of the most amazing experiences on the planet. How do we make that happen at home in a real way that feels meaningful and as special as a real concert experience?
Stay tuned while we take a quick music break.
That sounds fantastic. For people like myself, I'm disabled, and I used to love going to concerts, but there's no way to really do it now. I mean, yeah, I could take a wheelchair, have someone push me around, but then I'm fighting the crowds, and by the time I get down to the edge, I'm going to be in a bad mood. And so something like this just sounds like heaven to me. And we actually interviewed someone a few weeks ago, a Kickstarter that has already got 200% of goal, that I could totally see the plugging in. It's called Feel Belt, and plugging it in when being able to be in the virtual reality area of this, I could see these two things going hand in hand.
Oh yeah.
It has like 10 sensors.
It's like a full immersion. I mean, not only are you handling the VR aspect of it, but they're actually giving you that tactile sense of feeling the music. You know, you're feeling the beats and you know, the hard pulses and the soft pulses and things like that to make it a full immersion experience. And then you know, we just had an interview with a musician who you know, because of this, they're looking for ways to, as an indie artist, to reach out to their fans and find a new audience and stuff like that. So I mean, this is really exciting to be that full. And I have to say, you know, just as a little not a disclaimer, but you know, just, well, you know, it screws me up. I'm going to put this out there. VR screws me up. You know, and just something as simple as even on the screen, you know, doing 3D games and stuff like that. I just feel like I'm going to tip over. And Matthew and I were talking about that before. It's like when we have this full immersion experience, it's like, you know, that's great to have this feeling, but I got to sit down because I will fall over.
And that's okay. You know, it's funny because, you know, I designed Soundscape with the idea that everybody can play in whatever position is most comfortable for them. So you can play Soundscape standing up and dancing. You can play it sitting down in a chair. You can play it lying down on your back. And I've seen every variation of that as we've taken it across the country to Burning Man and other events where we first debuted the platform. You know, it's a funny thing to see someone just lie down flat on the ground and you just to ground themselves in reality a little bit better. But it's VR's, you know, things can naturally get intense, but the advantage is you give people that flexibility to choose what works for me. What do I feel? How do I feel like engaging with this technology right now?
Now, I know that, like you said, you guys were doing this pre-COVID, and once the quarantines hit, of course, every venue around sold out of the Oculus and any kind of VR equipment. Did you guys see a significant spike in usage after the quarantine started going out?
Yes. Yeah, certainly the quarantine has been a boon for VR. And I think every headset has been sold out now for about 2.5 months, and they continue to sell it instantly. We've been trying to round up some more so we can do some giveaways, but it's damn near impossible to find any inventory anywhere. And yeah, people are turning to VR because they're stuck at home, and it's, you know, it's a way again to really go face to face with other people, even when you're isolated at home. So alongside the quarantine, we were also been launching a few new updates recently with a new virtual world and some new features. So all the stars kind of aligned to start driving people in, and yeah, we've seen a healthy increase in users.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Now, I saw in the bio about Burning Man, and this idea came from that. Now, I know I have a lot of friends who actually go. It's like their mecca every year. What was your first experience with Burning Man, and how in the world did this idea come from something that is just so, again, it's like that full immersion experience at Burning Man, and you have all this creative people, you know, to bring technology like that there is kind of a dichotomy to me. So tell us about your Burning Man experience. When did you get the bug, and where did this idea, how did that become birthed in your head?
Yeah, so I moved to Chicago in 2011, and I was coming from Iowa at the time, where I grew up, which is pretty low key. And getting to a bigger city, I started checking out some new scenes and new parties, and I was getting into live music. And I found this event called the Freak Easy in Chicago. And the Freak Easy was a local Burning Man community that had kind of warehouse parties every other month. And I went to these, and I started kind of getting involved with the people there and saying, hey, these people are really cool, and they love lights and glowing things and music, and I was just kind of getting my feet wet from the scene. From there, I started learning about actual Burning Man, out in the desert in Nevada, and all the art that people create for there. And I kept seeing, all this creation coming out of this community, very inspiring. And I decided, hey, I'm going to go to Burning Man. This sounds amazing. And, I'd certainly seen and heard some good things about it, but I knew that it was one of those things that until I actually went, there was no way to really know what it was like. And when I got out there, I had a very early version of Soundscape I had built of something. Burning Man is about sharing. It's about gifting something. And I said, I want to take this technology that I've been working on and take it out there and give people this hyper immersive audiovisual experience. Because from what I had seen with the rest of Burning Man, that's what it is. It's all these artists creating all these immersive experiences, and a lot of them they do utilize a surprising amount of technology, because in general, I would say burners are quite intelligent, and a lot of them are Silicon Valley types, people who are playing with LEDs, art cars, coding. So I got out there and I found, that people went wild for it. That, my first year I took it, all I had was a laptop, a headset, some lights, and a battery. And, I set up on the most remote places of the playa, where for those who haven't been to Burning Man, this is something that goes on for miles, many miles. I would say the event is probably 20 square miles, and a lot of it is just open desert. And I said, what can I do? What can I show people in the craziest place where I'm going to be way out by the trash fence? There's going to be no lights. You're just in this dusty wasteland, and all of a sudden you come up and you find me with my headset, and I put you into the virtual world in the most inhospitable places, in the most, place where you would least expect to find something like this. Because, again, Burning Man, the pH of the dust there is about 9 or 10. It's absolutely horrible for electronics. It just eats through circuit boards. I set up, I risked my equipment to give people this experience, and I knew I was hooked in that moment. That I said, I'm onto something here. The love that people have for this is incredible. I was already immediately starting plans to come back next year and do this even bigger and better, so more people would get the chance to experience it.
Mm-hmm.
So I know, of course, this year's Burning Man was canceled. Had you guys planned on being there as well this year?
We had took off last year, but we were planning on making a return this year. And we were still planning on coming back. Burning Man is fantastic in that, I love just the creativity you see there. You can just bike for all night long and not even see the same thing twice. And it's such a treat to get to share something like Soundscape with that kind of community, that kind of positivity. That's what I always remind myself of when, in today's age, there's a lot of stuff online. And people are always commenting online and saying different things. But, I always tell myself, the love from Burning Man is the truly real thing in this world. And that's what I come back to in those times where I'm struggling with Soundscape and bashing my head against a problem. Because, I want to be able to bring that back and share that with the community that's given me so much.
Stay tuned while we take a quick music break. I think one of the things that I absolutely love about it, and I've never been to an event, it's on my bucket list.
Oh, you gotta go.
Is it's the being surrounded by the creative people, but not only that, it's as huge as this event is, they clean up after themselves, so they're environmentally conscious, and and again with the VR, that's about as clean a room as you can get. So it almost seems like a perfect fit.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's like that was the birthplace of that community. Without them, Soundscape would not be where it is today. And there's so many great things, about their, the way they clean up, the way they help everybody else out at the event, the way that it's not commoditized. There's no advertising when you're there. That it just feels like you're on a different planet. And it reminds me of the best parts of music festivals, which I'm also a big fan of, and bringing people together into a space that's a true escape from reality. That in today's world, reality can feel very overbearing at times and continually encroaches. You go to a place like that, and you might as well be on an entirely different planet.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of being on entirely different planets, I also know that just right as America really started taking the pandemic seriously, you guys released your fourth and largest world, Silica Sol, right? Is that how
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. We have recently launched Silica Sol. Silica Sol is a tribute, a love song to the American West, to states like Arizona, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, of golden sands, desert landscapes, crazy rocks, that kind of environment. There's even a place in it that has a playa similar to Burning Man, where you can just stand and look outstretched at the horizon and watch the sunset. And all of our worlds are very much grounded in nature with sort of an alien twist. And I've been looking forward to exploring those kind of desert themes for a while now, and it's been great to get Silica Sol out, because it is, it's massive in scope and scale and beauty, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. And I continue to work on it. In all of those Soundscape worlds, I kind of look at them as a living painting, a living work of art, where I just continually revisit them and add more details and new lights and new rock formations, or whatever you want to put into that world to continue making it more magical.
Mm-hmm.
And Meredith and I were talking before you got in, and I don't have a VR system. It's always intrigued me, and I'm just not into gaming that much. I'll buy a video game once a year. I'll buy the new Assassin's Creed Valhalla when it comes out, but the last one I bought before that, I think, was the new Star Wars Jedi, whatever it was. But I just don't buy games that much, and I'm afraid I would hurt myself with a VR helmet and gaming. But something like this, because I love music, I love things that can let me kind of unplug. That's not really unplugging, but it is, because it gets my eyes off a computer screen or the television screen, and I'm able to sit there and listen to some relaxing music and check out these areas that I've always wanted to see, that I'm probably not ever going to get a chance to see in person. And so I'm all about this and checking it out. Of course, now it'll probably be a year before we can ever get any VR helmets, and so
Yeah. That's a
Hopefully not.
terrible problem to have. Sold out. What?
Yeah. I think from the start, I've been operating under the assumption that VR will be similar to smartphones, in the sense that, it's a technology that comes out and people look at it like it's something crazy, like they did when the original iPhone came out, and everyone's like, who's going to type on a screen like that? You need a BlackBerry. And, with phones, it took about 7 years to hit an inflection point where smartphones started to become like super mainstream around 2012, 2013. VR has been out now, for around, 5 to 6 years. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to take a little longer than smartphones to get to that point, but I very much believe that by 2030, every person is going to have a VR headset similar to how every person has a smartphone. You might not use it every day, but it's going to be there because it is a tool, and it can be an escape. It's a screen per se, but it's a different screen. When you're in VR, you don't have your phone to look at. You don't have other distractions around you. And I think that's what makes it really appealing for artists. Because what artist, if you're a musician, what artist doesn't want someone to be totally laser focused on their art when they're experiencing it? If you're at a concert or a show, everybody knows about the problem with people on their phone, during the show and distracting. But when you're in that headset, there is nothing but you and the music. And that right there was the sole foundational eureka moment I had that made me want to make Soundscape, because there's nothing I love more than that feeling of total immersion, of being at a show and getting lost in the music, where you're looking at the artist and their music, and there's no person tall standing in front of you blocking your view. There's no feeling of, oh, I'm not in the right section because the sound would be better over there, but then there's some tall people standing over there. It's literally, you put on that headset and you are totally immersed.
We'll be back right after this.
Check it out. MobileEdge.com has award-winning products with innovative features and contemporary, edgy designs that empower you to look sharp and travel smart with your mobile tech. Your beloved, not to mention expensive gaming gear and mobile tech devices are an extension of you, so give them the protection and style they deserve wherever you go. Find them at MobileEdge.com and protect your tech with Mobile Edge. Bring it on. Hey Geek Insiders, Mobile Edge has a special coupon code for our dedicated listeners. Get 25% off your Mobile Edge gear using coupon code GEEK25. That's GEEK25. Geek out.
It's literally, you put on that headset and you are totally immersed.
It's almost like when you put that on, you're kind of giving people a case of the, what is it, synesthesia? Mm-hmm. Where you're seeing the sound and stuff, and you mentioned artists and stuff. That's the thing that appeals to me, I think, about VR, is that you can have that immersion feeling, and by seeing sound and just like waving your hand and you're making this art, and it's a lot less messy than I don't know if you remember the I think it was a documentary about Farrah Fawcett when she was making art and she would just like roll in paint and throw herself against the wall. It's a lot less messy than that.
Yes. But just as fun.
Yeah, but again, it's just that ability to listen to something, because I know for me, music is a full body experience, whether I'm singing it or listening to it. It puts me in a mood. It can get me out of a mood. And so to have that, and then have the visuals there, and then on top of it to be, that potential to be the armchair world traveler. Yep. For the people who can't go out there and see these worlds, like you were saying, Silica Sol, where it's kind of something that's in your head that you're expressing to everybody. It's like, hey, this is my world, and you're creating this new atmosphere for people, which is so exciting because it takes us out of the mundane. I find that exciting, and it's probably something that I would risk tipping over for.
Get some padded walls in your room.
Yeah, there you go.
Now,
padded walls. Oh no, he's after me.
No, it sounds like he knows you a little bit, Meredith. We've been saying that for a few years now.
I preface this by saying I don't have paperwork that says I'm sane. Okay, think about that for a little bit.
Right. Now, one thing that I want to know is the music, is it pre-selected in there, Eric, or are they able to pump in their own music or select their own music? And if it is already selected, how do artists go about getting included in Soundscape VR's worlds?
That's one of the best parts of Soundscape, is that any music, any genre, any song imaginable can be used in the software. That, coming into this, I understood that, every person has their own ideal version in their head of the ideal music experience of what they like to listen to. So, I could never create something where I was like forcing people to come into a certain genre. The music scene today, has never been more diverse in the number of genres and subgenres, and people can argue all day and try to classify stuff. The way it works is you just turn on any source you want, whether it's your hard drive files there, Spotify, YouTube, Pandora, any music source. Everything is visualized in game automatically. Basically, what's happening is that as the audio is passing your sound card, Soundscape is detecting that and modulating the visuals in game accordingly. So when a kick drum comes, when a hi-hat hits, when any sort of frequency range that we've programmed, we call it Sonic AI. That translates the visuals automatically from the piece of music. Now beyond that, that's just the base level. We do have music in game as well that we can deliver over the platform in the case of artists. So say you have an artist and they have, we have a set we wanted to show, or we have an album that's coming out that we want to do a listening party for. In that case, we're able to deliver the music over the platform or through streaming methods. So we have all sorts of ways that we can handle the audio to really make any sort of situation imaginable a reality. Again, whether it's a concert, whether it's a live stream, whether it's an album, whether it's just a mix you made, or just playing any music you want to hear. We try to keep it as open as possible. And there's no charge for that. A lot of other games have, song packs. You think of Guitar Hero back in the day, an early popular music game where it's like it comes with 10 songs. If you want to play more music, you got to pay a couple bucks for every song. That adds up. Here we're just letting people engage with whatever music they want anyway. And you can even have people listening to different music at the same time. So imagine a virtual world where you have 10 friends going in to this same virtual world. You're all listening to your own music at the same time, but you're sharing the virtual space. So you're able to then, intermingle the music and everybody can have their ideal audio experience, or you can all listen to the same thing together, synchronized if you want as well.
Wow. That is absolutely amazing, man. And that's the kind of stuff that I envisioned VR being used for when we first, dreamed about it back in the day, when Tron came out, that was.
I love Tron.
Oh, I do too, man. I do too.
I have
Uh-oh.
One of the first things that I built as a project was an identity disc. Light up Tron. I love crafting stuff. So
that's awesome.
You probably can't see it right now because it's pretty bright in here. But
I did.
Tron is a massive visual inspiration for Soundscape, and both in the artists who worked on both movies and Daft Punk, particularly on the second one with the amazing soundtrack.
Okay, so now as far as creativity and technical aspects and stuff like that, you are heads and tails above Matthew and I. But I did want to ask you about the platform, because I saw something that says that you can meet friends. You mentioned platform a couple of times. So I imagine that there are servers involved. Are there servers, and with the growth potential here, how do you intend to scale this project?
So currently, everything is users host their own servers currently. So if you go into a game right now and you say, I want to make a game, you launch your world and you're hosting that server locally, other players joining in on your server. So it's user supported servers. What we're planning to do in a couple months of the summer is move to dedicated hosted servers, so we can provide a better experience overall. Generally, we're going to be able to see higher player counts, higher performance. Not having to worry about the limitations of what if someone's trying to host a server but they don't have like a very strong computer. Right. So here I can host servers all day long on my machine. But at that point, that's one of the great things about the current world we live in with services like AWS and DigitalOcean. It's pretty dynamic as far as like bringing up servers online and taking them down as needed to guarantee everyone has the best experience. But that's a feature that's going to be coming online this summer alongside once we launch Artist Link, which is our tool to broadcast the live performances.
How can people find Soundscape VR? What do they need, in order to start playing?
Yeah, so soundscapeuniverse.com is our website for anyone who wants to check that out. And, it's Soundscape Universe because, I talk about Soundscape VR a lot, but, we're really focused on all realities, including VR, MR, mixed reality, and AR, augmented reality. So,
Cool.
Soundscape is really a collection of tools for all these different realities and utilizing music there. On the website, you'll find links to our Steam page and our Oculus page, where the software can be downloaded for free for those headsets. And to get started playing, all you need is a compatible head-mounted display, which is like Oculus Rift, HTC Vive, Valve Index, Windows Mixed Reality, those kind of systems, and then a computer a gaming PC that has the necessary horsepower to run Soundscape. And that can be a laptop, that can be a PC, but you probably will need a graphics card in that, simply because the fact that virtual reality is incredibly taxing on computers to run. That when you think of a normal video game, you run, or a TV show or whatever, you're usually looking at somewhere between 30 frames per second to 60 frames per second for a good experience. VR needs 90 frames per second for a good experience. You already out of the gate need 2 to 3 times the power to keep that high frame rate. Then in addition to that, it's usually even more taxing because in VR you get so close up to things. So textures, higher resolution, everything in VR needs to be bigger and better. So generally speaking, we recommend an RTX 2060, as our kind of minimum spec, which is about a $200 GPU. But you can also turn down the settings and run with lower. But out of the gate again, we're comparing ourselves to live music, and we said, hey, if we want to be a competitor to live music, a friendly competitor that is on equal footing. We need to make sure we're showing people the most amazing things possible, and that takes graphics horsepower. So, there's other people out there that may try to just recreate a live stream, and strap that to your face. To me, that always ends up a poor imitation of reality. You're always just in that experience saying it's not as good as it would be if I was there. With Soundscape, we're more focused on, recreating reality in an interesting way, and we think that. As the cost comes down for headsets and GPUs, that in a couple of years it's going to be very, very affordable. You're going to be able to get into VR and have a fantastic experience for less than the cost of even a single music festival. And from there, you really have access to infinite music festivals. So the cost value proposition is quite good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, taking social distancing to the next level, where it's not so painful for people.
Yes. Well, I absolutely, like I said, I absolutely love the idea and the whole concept behind it. And one of these days, when we can get the headsets again, I'm going to be getting myself one, and then I'll have to wait for your servers to come online. I do have a decent Mac, but I just don't know that it has a graphics card that's powerful enough. So, but once you guys have that server on, I'm definitely going to have to check it out. Because like I said, I love music. A lot of our audience loves music. We have musicians on here all the time, whether they're independents or got several albums out. And so seeing this kind of venue where both are, I can't think of the word I want, but benefiting from this one system, the artist and the music lovers and just people in general, because this experience can show that, it's not all just first person shooters in VR. It's not all just, wasting time going around stealing cars and Grand Theft Auto or what have you. There's actually a lot of art behind it. And like you said, man, there's a lot of work that goes behind this stuff. I commend you for your passion, following your passion, and being a part of Burning Man. As you can tell, I'm an old hippie here, and I haven't been able to make it to Burning Man yet. Maybe one of these days, but being a part of that culture with all those artists and those great minds, and then having the ability to retire at 29, and you could have said, "Screw it, man! I'm gonna live it at ease. I'm gonna fish every day or play poker online and be a professional poker player." You could have done any of that, but you've taken a passion and you're bringing it to the world better in a different venue or avenue than anybody else from what I've seen. And I really, really look forward to checking this out on my own. And of course, Eric, anytime you guys got a new world coming out or y'all are doing anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Because by then we're going to be immersed in it ourselves and we're going to want the inside information anyway. But other than the Soundscape universe.com, is there any place else? Is there a Discord channel or anything that
we have Discord and pretty active on Instagram and Facebook. And when you go to the website, all those links are right there through that portal. So the Soundscape universe is really the launch pad to diving into everything else related to us and getting in contact with us directly. But yeah, if the Discord is a great place to get in contact with myself and the rest of the team, and just chat or ask a question about help or just see what's up. But that's certainly where we're most active as far as the development team ourselves.
Very
so
cool.
Being that you are probably your worst boss ever, and probably, and I know that you're fully immersed in this, do you think ahead, like what your next project might be? What's after VR?
Okay, so after VR, I think of a few little ideas sometimes, but generally, I have a list of probably 100 features at any given time that I'm trying to implement in Soundscape, years down the road. I look at Soundscape, when I started it, I thought it was going to be like a decade-long project. We've been going about 7 years now. I feel like we're about a little under halfway. I think it's going to be more like 15 to 20 years of my time now I intend to spend on Soundscape. I do have some fun ideas for stuff afterwards, though, and I have a lot of other side projects and stuff that I like to play around with. But generally, something like recreating reality within Soundscape is such an ambitious project in itself that it's hard to look too far past that and think about stopping that anytime soon.
Yeah, that rotten boss of yours.
Yeah. Yes.
And I found the same thing, Eric, is when I started working as a freelancer, I was the worst boss I ever had. And I used to have people tell me all the time, "Hey, you're a great boss. I love you as my boss." I don't know why, but because I'm a slave driver. But Eric, one thing that we do like to ask all of our guests, and this one could be pretty interesting with you, is if you could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a tough one. It's I've definitely changed a lot over the years, and I've always my interests have certainly been always been very rooted in technology. Interestingly enough, my degree was in microbiology, and I was a scientist. The reason for that was because I was afraid of getting into technology and games and that kind of stuff. I thought that if I did it for the money, that it would ruin my passion for it. That I was afraid of corrupting it and turning it into a career. The way I got around that was because, I was able to retire, so I don't have to do it for the money in a sense. So I kind of cheated that. But the piece of advice I would give for myself, and the hang up that I almost had that kept me from doing Soundscape until a friend of mine talked me out of it, was that almost any barrier you can envision in your mind is one you put up for yourself. And I had told myself, I had the idea for Soundscape, and I was in the process of talking myself out of it. I said, hey, Eric, you didn't go to college to become a computer science degree. You're a microbiologist. Well, that ship has sailed. And I was telling myself, no, it doesn't make sense. That's somebody else out there. They already have more training than you and would have a leg up on getting started. And a very smart friend of mine in Chicago named Prince Manji, who's a high up in the tech scene there, he told me, he said, Eric, no, you can do this. You can make Soundscape. And I was like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, like I know you, and I believed him. And I said, okay, I'm just going to go for it, and I'm going to have fun with it. And that's my goal when I set out for this is, no expectations, just having fun, because I know I love music. I know I love visual arts. And if I wouldn't have taken that leap of faith, if I wouldn't have said this barrier is created in your own mind, then I wouldn't be sitting here today. But because I challenged myself to see if I really was capable, I found out I very much was capable. And now I look back saying, you don't need to go to college and get a degree to do what I'm doing. It can certainly help. It can teach you the skills and the discipline to do what I'm doing. But the teachers, the professors there, and something like VR that's so cutting edge, they don't have the secret sauce. The secret sauce is the passion inside of you, is the dedication to do your own research and self-teach yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool,
and
man.
I know that we're actually a little bit over our time, because I know we were promised a half an hour of your time, and you're probably very busy. But I did want to know who inspires you, and who do you look to as a mentor?
A couple people. One, Elon Musk. He's like the embodiment of somebody who's out there doing things for good in the world, not because they're trying to just get richer, but because they want to create meaningful change in the world. And they're not he doesn't operate by like the standard CEO playbook and what people expect out of him. So I really admire him for just doing so many damn things. He's doing, Tesla, SpaceX, Boring, so many things. What a wonderful human being. Outside of
that's Meredith's ultimate get for an interview is Elon. That's who she wants to interview the most.
he would be great on here. But I love him to death. Also really admire, as far as musicians, I really look up to Hans Zimmer. He's a composer, that's done scores for so many great films from, Lion King, Batman, Inception, Pirates of the Caribbean. He's just a musical genius to be able to, to conduct an orchestra like that and have so many moving parts and write the music for 100 different people and have it come together coherently. He just blows my mind in what he's got going on up there. Neil deGrasse Tyson and Carl Sagan, two scientists that I've got Cosmos on my shelf over here that, Carl Sagan really taught me how to think in a lot of ways that I do, and was great at taking scientific knowledge and kind of translating it to the general population, where some scientists, they can talk and they sound very condescending. It's hard to get, regular people excited. Carl Sagan had that amazing gift of talking about the most amazing scientific principles and making it so everyone could understand. And, I try to take aspects of all of those people into my own work. because I want Soundscape to be something for everyone that, that people can engage with that and understand it and get excited about it and know that, it's something for good. That in general, technology has a bad rap nowadays in a lot of ways. When you look at something like Facebook and Google, and they're too big for their own good in some ways, and not a lot of people are happy with them. I'm trying to avoid the problems that those platforms made with Soundscape, and keep it more on the lines of, free speech, minimal advertisements, and just keeping its own special thing rather than trying to find a way to wring every penny out of that and end up using it as a tool for control, which is sadly how a lot of technology has evolved.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Well,
Now,
being
wait.
Okay, sorry. I told you I stomp on him all the time.
Well, because he just brought up a couple of things here. You brought up my man Elon, and you brought up Neil deGrasse Tyson, and with the ability to make virtual reality so realistic now, Elon has come out on his view on the topic, and so has Neil. Do you think it's possible that we're living in a simulated reality at this point?
I think that is a possibility. Absolutely. And I have seen the Elon Joe Rogan where he discussed that and have kind of floated the idea before in my own mind. And, my perspective on it is like, you look at back in the 80s and there was Pong, and that was mind blowing at the time for people that you were bouncing this ball
Right.
around back and forth. A few years later, you've got, games like Mario and Halo and Half-Life coming out, which, people were like, this is the craziest thing ever. Nowadays, we've got Soundscape, where you're literally going into the world, and, all that has happened in about 40 years of time. Right. That we've gone from Pong to Soundscape. If we can go from Pong to Soundscape in 40 years, I feel like another 40 years we can be at an absolute perfect simulation, of reality. So, obviously Moore's law and such has to hold up, but, I believe as, when you look at things like the singularity and technology acceleration, that it's always exponential. And at this rate, I just can't look at what's happened in the last 40 years and say that, there's no chance we're in a simulation because, it's just going to keep getting better. And then when you're at that point, we're going to be able to put somebody else in the simulation. So, who's to say someone else out there isn't putting us in the simulation already? So I can't say that I think it's a probable situation.
Right.
But I do think it's possible. And I would put if I had to put a probability on it, I would put it in the range of maybe 5 to 15%. If I had to put a number on it to say that we are in a simulation of some sort.
Gotcha, man.
Well,
I just
did a lot of people. Yeah, I was going to say there are a lot of people who really believe in the collective consciousness, and we're all just these atoms bouncing around and expressing these ideas oftentimes at the same time, whether it's a similar dream or, the deja vu, even things like that. So that's really interesting. Go ahead, Matt. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I do another little show on my own on Wednesdays. It's called Geeky, Cheeky, and Downright Freaky. And I've covered 2 shows back to back, a part 1 and a part 2, about are we in a simulated reality? And I blew Meredith's mind with the double slit experiment and then showing that, the observer effect, as well as the Mandela effect and how that could be a possible sign of glitches in the matrix. And so that was just a question I had to have, because that is something a topic that I enjoy looking into. I'm the exact same way. I won't say that it's a probability, but I do say it's a possibility. And as Neil deGrasse Tyson says, I'd love for somebody to come up and prove to me that there's just absolutely no way. But a lot of the stuff that I've looked into, including how the freaking neutrinos and all that act at the subatomic or the quantum level, I do think it's quite possible. And but so I just wanted to ask that, especially because you're in the VR field.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one thing I always come back to is that throughout history, there's been a recurring pattern, and that pattern is that everybody always thinks they've got everything figured out. Whether whether you go back 100, 1,000, 10,000 years, people say, oh, we're looking at the reality around us and we understand it. We know why this is happening, and what's been proven is that along the way they've been totally wrong. That they continue to figure out, oh, we were wrong. Wait a minute, this, the Earth actually isn't the center of the universe,
Right.
or the stars or the weather, aren't controlled by whatever. So, I see us now just as another face of that, where we look around us and we're thinking, yeah, we're pretty smart. We understand atoms, we understand the universe to some degree, and and we certainly do have a better understanding of a lot of that stuff now. But I'm just waiting for that next moment of pulling back the curtain and saying, okay, wait a minute, there's a lot more here. We just didn't have the tools to observe it. Because that's really what's happened is through the progression of science is we keep getting better tools, and then we understand a little better. With our tools we have right now, we can detect, but we need some more advanced tools to take it to the next level, I think, and really figure out what's going on.
We'll be back right after this quick break. For Geek Insider advertising opportunities, contact advertising@geekinsider.com. We offer space on the website, in the daily newsletter, sponsored posts, and advertising space on our podcast. For details, contact advertising@geekinsider.com.
Now, I did have just one more question here, Eric, with the VR stuff. Of course, when it first started coming out and there was all these possibilities thrown out, one was that, the medical community would be able to use VR to envision those small areas or those intricate surgeries. And of course, I haven't seen that much of that in recent years. It's all been entertainment focused and relaxation focused. In this field, are you still seeing and hearing, because you're a lot closer to the pulse than I am, are we still seeing that kind of thing for this field?
Absolutely. I was at a conference last year, Oculus Connect, and they had a presenter from, I believe it's Johnson & Johnson, up, and they were talking about how they had been training surgeons with VR headsets. So
very cool.
Before the surgeon now ever even steps in the operating room, they're able to go in through the headset and practice these surgeries. And I don't remember what the exact statistics were, but they had compared a control group versus an experiment group. The control group didn't use any VR training prior to the surgeries. The test group used the VR headset to practice, some of these surgeries. And the data showed that for the surgeons who had gone through the VR training, there was a significant difference in their skill level going in and the time it was taking them to complete. I don't remember all the metrics they measured, but VR for training has actually had a very sharp rise over the last year. I know that a lot of corporations are kind of dipping their toes into it, and I know Walmart had bought a bunch of headsets to train people. There's a lot of tasks that VR can be very good for training. It can feel very real in the headset, and then when you're put in that situation to actually do the operation or check someone out or whatever your task is, I believe that it can be highly useful in that case.
I mean, there's just so much potential all around
There is
with this kind of technology.
And on the treatment side of things, you have phobias can be treated in VR, or other say someone has some trauma. VR is a great therapeutic tool there, I think, to explore, and there's a whole lot of untapped potential there.
Yeah.
And I think the key is, and you mentioned it earlier, Eric, is that the price of the headsets has to come down to where, us that live paycheck to paycheck can afford one without, having to skip a couple of meals. And yeah, I like good equipment. I've got an Apple, a Mac, a MacBook Air for my workstation, and I've got a big TV and stuff. But those are purchases, that, hey, I know I'm going to use this every day, and so I'm spending that extra money. When it comes to a headset, and I'm not a gamer, like I said, it's going to be something that's leisurely, or maybe I do want to learn something through there. They got some kind of educational program that you can put that on. But really, like I already said, the music aspect with the Soundscape is just a huge draw for me. But those prices have to come down, and of course the availability has to go up. And of course I think we'll see that, is knock on wood, we don't have another big surge across the world with COVID. But do you guys have any plans then? Because y'all have ran into this headset issue, and as innovative as you are y'all considering getting into making your own headsets?
That I would love to do that, but that's a very, when you do that, you compete with Facebook and Valve, which are both billion-dollar corporations that have thousands of people working on that. So I would love to someday, but I think with manufacturing, it's a game of margins. And Facebook or Oculus, one and the same, they're selling their headsets. They're not even making money on the headset. They're
Right.
selling the headset at a loss to keep other people from making headsets, so that they can get you on their platform and get the money there. So it's you have to have an extreme amount of capital to go into manufacturing a headset. But I do think the prices will come down, because it's similar to like most technology, where when it comes out, it's expensive and it's like for the enthusiasts, but then it comes down in time. Like, look, TVs are a great example. When flat screen TVs came out, $10,000 for like a 50-inch plasma. Nowadays, you can get like a 55-inch 1080p or 4K TV for like $200-$300. Like, it's absolutely mind-blowing how cheap displays have gotten, and phones as well too. The iPhone came out and people were like, who's going to spend $600 on a phone? Nowadays, iPhones are still expensive, but there's other brands that are in there. You get the cheaper versions. You can get a used one on eBay for cheaper. Headsets, they're still new. Give it 5 years and you're going to be like, how the heck is this headset so cheap? Like, this is amazing. It's a portal to the world, to the virtual world, anywhere I want to go. The value, someday you're going to look at it and say, this is some of the best couple $100 a person can spend. But it takes time to get there. The early adopters, they paved the way for the rest of the people.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say one more thing, because I know that we've taken up about an hour of your time, but being that you love music so much, and, I bet that you have this headset on, and I bet you have a wicked air guitar, but I'm not going to put you on the spot. Maybe we'll save that for the next interview.
Yeah.
Well, last question then, Eric. With being a music lover, being traveling around, what was your favorite concert you ever went to live?
Ooh, that's a good question, and one I love to ask other people. I don't know if I can say one in particular, but I'll give you top three of my favorites ever. First was Hans Zimmer at Coachella. He did a tour with a full orchestra. It was his only tour date at a music festival, and here I am at Coachella. The sun is setting. He's on the outdoor stage. He comes out and plays with probably 50 people on stage. And it was one of those shows where it very, very rarely happens to me. But I started spontaneously crying that the power of the music on the stage, of him and everyone and every amazing musician he had up there. It just was like so much sensory stimulation. I was overcome, and just kind of a peak moment right there of just being outdoors in beauty with just the most amazing music performance you can imagine. That was one of them. Another show that really blew my mind, the show that inspired the creation of Soundscape actually was Sound Tribe Sector 9, STS9. They're a jam band, and I saw them at Chicago at the House of Blues. And I was standing up on the balcony in the front row looking down at them. And that's when I had the idea for virtual reality music, because I had nothing in front of me. It was me and the artist, and every light just shining right at me. And I just had a taste of what that ultimate immersion feels like. And I said, VR is a way to recreate this experience at home, where you're on the balcony and it's just you and the artist, and nothing going on between you there. The final show, I'll say, that was my best show ever was Pretty Lights at Lollapalooza at 2011. It was my first music festival I ever went to, and I was just wandering around, didn't really know who was playing, and I walked into this tent, and Derek Vincent Smith, Pretty Lights, was playing, and he does a lot of like funk and hip hop and kind of mixes, but he's also very well known for his lighting, and it was my first taste of someone whose visual production was absolutely next level. And I just remember standing there and my jaw was just on the floor. Like I wasn't even dancing. I was just like hypnotized by this stage. And what him and his VJ Laser Shark were doing, it was my first taste of that world. And man, I was hooked. I was hooked immediately. So yeah, those are a few of I've seen, so many great shows that continually inspire Soundscape, but those three, are the first three that come to mind that I continually come back to mentally.
That's amazing.
Well, very cool. Thanks so much for sharing. And again, Eric, man, we really, really appreciate you taking time out of your day and joining us and telling the folks about Soundscape VR and Silica Sol and just how it all came to be. And man, like we said earlier, anytime you guys got a release, anything that y'all want to share, please hook us up, either through Taylor or you can just contact me directly, whatever you guys like to do. But we'd be more than happy to have you guys at any time.
Yeah, it was such a pleasure.
That sounds good. The pleasure is truly mine. This is being my passion. I just love talking about this stuff, and I can talk about it for hours. And it's always fun to get to share the excitement with other people who are passionate about music and arts and geek culture as well as all your listeners. So thank you again for having me, and I look forward to revisiting in the future sometime.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Eric. You have a great rest of your day, sir, and we'll hope to speak to you again in the near future.
Adios.
Thank you for tuning in to Geek Speak, a Geek Insider production powered by NSC Live TV. Become part of our show with sponsorship and advertising opportunities. For details, contact advertising@geekinsider.com or visit podcast.geekinsider.com. The Geek Insider podcast is available on your favorite app, so please hit the follow button and share it out to your friends. Because if you don't, you might have to turn in your geek card.